John Krasinski Show on the Talk North Podcast Network. We are coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. And as you all know, when I lead off the pod, there generally means that Jim Suen has abdicated his responsibilities as the normal host and quarterback of this thing. And so I am left to my own devices, which is usually trouble. But this week, we are bringing in a very special guest, fresh off of an extended stay in Las Vegas. It is the one and only Dane Moore. Dane, how is it going, my man?
Good, man. Using words like abdicated. It's like, I'm used to this with Brit, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I got to make you a little comfortable with it, you know,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I got to get you into the mode a little bit. So I'll get some more 4-syllable words into this.
There you go.
A little bit later.
You know?
Yes, exactly. We are brought to you by True Vision Institute, by Shepherd Goods, Lamb Chops Clothing, by TSR Time, TSR Injury Law, and by Head Flyer Brewing. And we'll hear a little bit more from those sponsors a little bit later in the show. But right now it is, to quote Tupac, when I look at the two of us, Dane, I think about, you know, Tupac and Biggie a lot, and Tupac, a lot of the great rappers of all time. And
that's what you think about when you look at us?
Yes. Yep. Two of America's most wanted in the same place at the same time. And here we are. So I felt like it was a good time for maybe us two to just sit down after, you know, Summer League is still going on, but it's winding down. You were there for an extended stay. I was there for the first game and the first weekend, and have been kind of watching from afar. As you got on the red eye to come home, after that dreadful last game, I mean, foul fest, all of that stuff.
Not a fouls.
Just kind of like, what are your opening, or I guess your takeaways, kind of from a bigger picture perspective of what you saw in Summer League, and kind of, you know, just anything that stood out to you kind of on the larger scale. We'll get into Rob Dillingham, we'll get into Shannon and all that individually, but just big picture takeaways as you walked out of there. So
not Shannon or Dillingham specific, just like overall?
Just overall.
I think what stood out to me overall from a Wolves team standpoint was that it had like an identity.
Yeah.
You know, you and I have been going to Summer League for a long time, and there's been a lot of Wolves teams who have not invested at all in the Summer League squad. You know, it's kind of like bring in some of the G League guys. The roster you get emailed to you 2 days before actually isn't the roster for the first game. Right. Clearly this team was going to be like real from the jump, right? Of who was going to be on the roster. I think it's like 7-8 players actually under contract, 7, right, on the Wolves that are contracted. So they'll be around this year. So that instantly made me be like, okay, this might actually be worth, you know, watching and digging into. Cause I feel like Summer League does hold a value if you know, like, what you're looking at, right? If you just pop in and watch a random Summer League game, you don't know the players, whatever. But like for us, you know, we're watching the Wolves all the time. We have an idea of what roles are available and such. And so I think there's some value in that, but I think there was even more value this year because that team, the Wolves Summer League team, played a lot like we know Chris Finch wants the big club to play. There was a defensive identity. There was a care factor to it. And honestly, I saw players on the Summer League roster that I would have gone into it being like, I'm not sure you do actually care about defense. Care about defense, you know, Rob Dillingham, Dacian Nix, all the way up and down the line. It's interesting. And it's a good example of, one, how far the Wolves have come, and two, that like sneaky value of Rudy that we often forget, that he has created a defensive culture in Minnesota. And there's different things you could say about Rudy Gobert. That's one of the real ones, is he's a culture setter. And I think you even see that, spread to Summer League this year.
Yeah. And I think like, if you do want to carry it forward, like obviously you always have to be careful with how you evaluate individual performances, kind of the game results in those things, given the sort of chaotic nature of Summer League. You have a bunch of guys fighting for their lives. You have some guys that are just kind of bored with being there. You don't really, there are guys who will look great in Summer League and then won't pan out in the NBA. And there are guys who will look terrible and actually play well in the league, and in all manner of things. But I do think that if you, my big picture thought is similar in that if you have concerns about Rob Dillingham's size, if you have concerns about, Dacian Nix as a third point guard or whatever they're going to do there, it is clear that they have a real sort of confidence that when you get into our system now, right, you're going to do things the right way. And if you can't, we're going to have people that cover for you and vice versa. But I do think that, Finch laid the groundwork at the end of the season. And we've heard it a few times since then of, guys, when we come back into training camp, we are not starting at the Western Conference Finals. We are starting all the way over. And I think that is kind of the message to these young guys is you better play defense, and that's going to be what's expected of you. But also we believe in our ability to bring things out of you that maybe you didn't have in your bag before. And that's going to be the expectation for a team that wants to contend for a championship next season.
Well, and I think that's a good way to start talking about Rob, right? Yeah. Like that, what I've been referencing out of Summer League was Monte Morris last year when he came to the Wolves. And that was like the one question, right? If they're like, okay, Wolves need a backup point guard, but the Wolves are this awesome defensive team. Monte Morris has not historically graded out well. But I think all of us who are watching the Wolves day to day after Morris came would be like, yeah, Morris
that might have been the best thing that he brought.
I know, right?
On a consistent basis. Yeah.
So yeah. I thought about that from the Rob Dillingham standpoint, and actually watching Rob in these games, if you kind of focus on him, he's clearly trying on defense. He knows the way. He said it when we did interviews of I obviously got to get better defensively. He's fouling people. He's hitting people. He knows that matters. And that's why I'm sure a bunch of people rolled their eyes when they're listening to us talk about the culture of the Summer League team at the beginning here. But that's why I think that's important, is because this team got good last year because it had a defensive culture and because everybody who Finch ever played that way. Yep. You remember even Troy Brown? We were like, why isn't Troy Brown playing? And it was you talk to people, right? And they're like, Finch isn't playing guys who aren't guarding.
Yep.
And then Troy Brown, then he's traded and Shake Milton's traded. I'm fascinated to see how that plays out in practice this year, specifically with Rob, where I don't think he's going to play defense, John.
Right.
I think he's going to maybe try some. I don't think that kid at 19-year-old is going to be at 165 pounds to be able to play defense. I'm really interested to see where Finch's flexibility with that is and comfort with kind of letting some of that go, knowing maybe it maybe helps you down the line, helps your offense a little bit. But he was extremely stringent about defense last season, and they were the number one defense because of it. So it's just an interesting place to kind of start with Dillingham in particular.
I think. Do you think he can be Alvarado-esque?
No, dude. No, he is a zero right now.
Yeah,
Dillingham is going to come in as a zero.
But he has to play defense
with that fire,
speed, with speed and determination and sort of sneaking up on you.
Yes,
he's not going to be in your face. I'm locking you up. I'm, that stuff. I'm just talking about in the stylistic approach that Alvarado has, where it's deception. It's it's work ethic. That's got to be his route to being any kind of a factor on there versus, Well,
it's the question of do you to use a David Vanderpool term, can you even do solid is enough when you're that small, right? Do you almost need to increase your gambling and take some chances there, rely on your speed and all of that? I mean, ultimately, Alvarado is probably a couple inches shorter than Rom, maybe 3 inches shorter than him and 30 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
Stronger. That's the thing. I mean, the defensive comparison for Rob Dillingham right now is Trae Young. That's okay. And that's the issue of that is he needs to play this season. It would be totally okay if Rob Dillingham comes in, in a normal situation, you're 19, you're okay, you're one of the worst defenders in the league. But by the time you're 21, you're ready to go. You've learned some of that stuff. The issue is he's got to play right now and can he do that defensively, enough to make it fit? I don't know. And Summer League hasn't really encouraged me in that way that he can. Summer League, whatever. But this was always going to be the question, right?
That was always the question. And I also do think that there was some logic in the way that Tim Connolly approached the roster building the rest of the way to make it that, man, you know, there's no other options like for you. You know, we're not going to have anyone else you can go to. It's like, this is our guy. Like, we believe that he can be a very high level offensive help to this team. And so you're just going to have to muddle through it. And you
think Mitch is going to do that?
I don't know.
I
don't know. Like, I really don't. I mean, could I see Joe Ingles playing 32 minutes in height sometimes? Like, I don't know. Like, that's the other option, right? So I think it's going to be very interesting, because there are absolutely 100% going to be nights, especially in October, November, December, where you're like, whew, this kid is overmatched. And it's going to be difficult. And so the question I have, which I don't know the answer to right now, is, will Chris Finch be patient enough? And I think that if he literally does not have any other options, it's like, hey, we're going to take lumps. We might lose some games early that we wouldn't normally if we did bring back Monte Morris, if we did, have a more traditional veteran backup point guard, but that also would stunt the progress for Dillingham, because by playoffs, clearly they want him to be a seventh, eighth guy, come in and change the energy of a game and hit a few shots and make some plays. Like, that's the long-term goal. And
take the lumps in the fall.
Yeah.
So as to, get him there.
But Chris is really competitive. So, like, I don't, it's hard to do. Like,
well, I think too, like, we're looking at it a little bit too straightforward from okay, there's Mike, and then Rob Dillingham is the only other point guard on the roster, which I've said like multiple times. But like, Nikhil can play some point guard. And also Ant, like, there's a possibility that just becomes way more the thing with Ant, where it's like, he's the dude bringing it up, and then it can maybe be Ant and Nikhil or Ant and Joe Ingles, and you don't necessarily need to have, Rob Dillingham out there. Now, the question with all that is Rob losing confidence because of that? Does he come in and in October and November, he's playing 18, 19 minutes a night, he's struggling, whatever. You kind of start peeling back at those minutes by letting Ant be point guard more. Well, then you're probably not getting that version of Rob Dillingham you're talking about in the playoffs there. But I don't know. I mean, we just got to get a better idea of it. It's just Rob's looked rough in Summer League. That's what we wouldn't have been having this conversation the same way about Dillingham 10 days ago, which maybe is just us living way too much in the moment of what we're seeing in Summer League. And I'm sure that's what some people are thinking when they're listening to that. But being there in person, seeing him in person, regardless of what the result was, simply the size, that was jarring to me and got me thinking in my head. I'm like, all right, I know I'm going to have an episode in November being like, the title is, how much is Rob Dillingham hurting the defense? That episode is coming. That article is coming on The Athletic. I just got to see what at camp, right? Got to see what it's like at training camp in the context of this team. Is Rob one of those guys that when he is in the context of a lot of more defensive players, it covers it up a little bit more? In theory, I guess, but I don't know.
I think if you want to look on the optimistic side of things, I do like the role that they've given him in Vegas in terms of, like, we need you to work on making plays. We need you to really be a leader of this team. But then come the fall, it is going to be surrounding him with people to help him. Like, he's going to have Nikhil by his side. He might be out there with Ant every once in a while. He's going to have Rudy or Nas or, Jaden. He's going to have a lot of people around him so that he's not going to have to carry the weight.
Dude, he's also going to be guarding crappy players.
Exactly. Crappy players who in the regular season are not going to be scouting as much, right? It's not going to be, okay, we're hunting Rob every time out. Now in the playoffs, absolutely, that'll happen. There will be certain games where he will be hunted as well, I think, early in the season, but not to the degree, like when it's 82 games, these teams are not going individual scouting report night in and night out quite as much. So I do think like there will be opportunity for him to more ease into things, maybe find a little bit more of a rhythm, certainly be surrounded with guys who can carry more of the load than he does. So I think that all of that will work in his favor. And I do think despite, the shooting that we've seen so far, I think that's going to come around. I really do believe that in the right spots, he'll come in. There'll be nights where he comes off the bench and scores 14 points and, in 19 minutes and the crowd is going crazy because he's step back three and doing kind of some of the flashy stuff. But I think of the way that I kind of look at it is I see his progression probably similar as a small Nas. Like Nas was like super skilled, but he had to do so many things early in his career, right? He had to do so many things early in his career to harness that skill, to refine it, to kind of figure out where he can exploit mismatches and where he can cover up his weaknesses. And it might take a couple of years. Like I mean, he is 19 years old and he is different than most of the guys at his position, similar to Nas. And so, but when it is going well, it's going to be electric and it's going to be super fun. And then there's going to be moments where it's like, yep, he's not ready for this just yet. And so I think that's kind of like the headspace I put myself in with him is here's a young point guard version of Nas and he's got to go up the steps the same way that Nas has done.
No, I like that. It's just Nas had so much more time and runway to be able to do that. And that's just the weird part of all of this, right? It's like, I mean, we talked to everybody there. They're like, oh, Rob's playing. Like, Rob's playing,
Yes.
Nas was not playing.
Nas went to the G League, yes. And he was playing on a team with 20, winning 25 games or whatever, 18 games. So there was a lot more margin for error, I would say.
Right.
Yes.
But I like the kind of like body comparison part of it, right? Like that's probably the element of both of their games, or that Nas definitely did to evolve himself physically, with getting in better shape. And then Rob is going to need to be more sturdy, obviously, for defense, which we've talked about. But what's really stood out to me in Summer League is like he can't really do anything at the basket.
Yes.
Like in terms of like all the way when he's like getting to the right side for a layup, he's getting like way out on the angle so as to be able to put it up and it's helping like hitting the top of the backboard and going over. You know what I'm talking about? Like we've all taken that shot when we've been guarded by somebody who's a lot taller than us in basketball, right? So I think like Dillingham, it's going to be really important for him that he gets like a little bit, because I don't think the rim's going to be there for a couple of years. I think he's got to get that floater game going. And to get the floater game going, right, that's like a strength coming off of the pick and roll, like enough to be able to take that first bump and be able to get there. Like, I don't know exactly what that looks like from a workout plan, but that the kid needs to get stronger,
right,
to be able to do his best thing, which is offense. And I think like, given the prospect hit that he was, that's almost a lock to be there when he's 21.
Yes.
But what is it when he's 19 and a half or whatever come December or even, the playoffs next year? It's hard to say.
Going to be interesting. Absolutely. We will get to a lot more coming up here on the John Krasinski Show with special guest Dane Moore. We're going to stop here for a few minutes and just get a couple of words from our sponsors. First, True Vision Institute in Bloomington. I am going in next week for LASIK surgery with the folks at True Vision. I cannot recommend the process that has led up to it enough. But when I'm done with it next week, I'll tell you all about how the finished product goes. But I have an incredible amount of confidence in the people at True Vision with how the care that they have taken to educate me on the process, to test my eyes, to make sure that I got the right procedure for myself, and that I'm going to come out of this not having to wear glasses anymore for the first time since I was in 4th grade. I can't wait to tell you guys all about the actual procedure and what's going on with it. But the run up to it has been so comprehensive, has taken care of all of my concerns, all of my nervousness, and everything about it. And I'm just really excited at this point. So if you are interested in any kind of eye care, but particularly LASIK surgery, check out Chew Vision Institute, chewvision.com. We're also brought to you by sglambchops.com. That's Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing. Super stylish, super comfortable, casual wear by the good folks who are local. You've seen Jordan, you've seen Craig sitting courtside at Lynx games, at Timberwolves games. They are part of this community. They are always showing up at events around town to share their goods with everyone. And I can't recommend them enough. They're great. Their hoodies are awesome. Their shorts are the most comfortable and some of the coolest shorts I've ever worn. They are, if you go to sglambchops.com and put in the promo code JONK20, that's John K20, it'll get you 20% off with of anything at the store. So go in there. You're going to find really cool stuff to wear that's going to make you comfortable, going to make you look good, going to make you feel good for supporting people who are a very big presence locally in the sporting world, just in and around town. Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line. And we are also brought to you by Princeton's Liquors. Bill Princeton and the Princeton family in Maple Grove have been running their liquor store for years and years, for decades. Bill was a longtime supporter and is a longtime fan of the Timberwolves and Lynx, has supported this podcast and has listened to it for a very long time. And just a great dude with an unbelievable selection of bourbon, an unbelievable selection of craft beer. If you're into THC seltzers and gummies, he has those. So stop on in to Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. They will take care of you and it will be worth the wait. So you go in there, say the John Krasinski show sent you, and have yourself a good time. Get yourself something to enjoy for this weekend with the wonderful weather that we're having. That's Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. All right,
dude,
Dane,
you're getting
here.
LASIK? What?
Getting LASIK. Yeah, man, I'm going for it. Clark Kent,
wow,
going to Superman. So, I don't know.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's just, it came up as an opportunity. I'm like, let's get it. I won't even know what, like, the glasses are kind of my thing. So I don't know if I'm supposed to like change up like what people know me for, but hey,
well, you can get you can get some of the fashion ones now, right? Like, no lenses needed. You know?
I might have to do that. Maybe it's still make it happen. So we'll make it happen. We'll see what happens. But I'm looking forward to it. So kind of circling back on Summer League and where we started this conversation with the identity of the team. Something that really impressed me was Chris Hines as the coach and as sort of the message deliverer. And he's, from the first game on, it was, hey, if you're going to play the Timberwolves, whether it's in Vegas or in Minneapolis or wherever, you're going to feel us, you're going to feel our presence. And I think that we always look at these opportunities for back of the second row coaches, player development guys, young coaches trying to make a name for themselves and getting a chance to run the show. I just been impressed with sort of the messaging, the way that he's handled the media part of things, but also it does seem like the messages he's delivering are being absorbed by the players in terms of that defensive intensity, in terms of what these guys need to do to see the floor in Vegas. What do you think? What have you thought from Chris so far?
Well, I mean, we've seen him. So he's, to people who don't know, like he works with Ant every day, right? Like every player has their own specific, player development coach. Big Al works with the bigs, right? And C. Hines works with Ant. And it's one of those things where, before I was doing this, like wouldn't have had any idea, like, one, what a player development coach does, or two, what the value of it is. But it is an interesting thing, it being, close to it now, like we are, to see. It reminds me how young these players are and how helpful it is to have somebody who's like a little bit older than the big brother status. It's kind of like the uncle, like I feel like C. Hines is like the cool uncle.
Yeah.
But also is going to make sure your shit is straight, right? And so I've always thought highly of him. And obviously give him some credit in my mind for the growth of Anthony Edwards. But then we don't really like get to see the guys out in a full on coaching setting. And it was striking to me that the respect I know Ant has for him, I saw that whole group have. And yeah, again, it's like I'm watching summer league games. I'm like, the Wolves are actually playing defense, and fouling. But I think that's all like part of the goal. That's a good coach, right? When a team is actually executing the vision of what you put forward, I think that's a good job by the coach.
Yeah, and like what we have learned from Ant in his time here is he enjoys not confrontational maybe, but certainly in your face coaching and like real feedback. And there's been times where if Ant is not playing up to expectations, Hines will be the one that sort of grabs him by the shirt collar and says, let's go, lock it up, get your ass in gear. And I think that when he is able to take that approach with the face of the franchise and do it that way, he has zero hesitation to do it with Rob Dillingham or Terrence Shannon or Nix or Heafy or whatever. And I just think that's a good sort of initial voice to hear for a lot of these young guys. Like, let's set the ground rules right here, because when you come into training camp in the fall, like it's going to be Hines, it's going to be Finch, it's going to be Elson Turner, it's going to be, all of these guys, they're going to get on you. Like that's going to be part of the environment that has been established here. And so it prepares them for what they're going to hear and see, in training camp in September. I think that's a good way. Do you think
Ant will always be that way?
It's a good question. I don't. So like part of me says yes, because I think that it's just, he seems like a very authentic guy who is not going to change a lot of like who he is. I'm talking swearing in press conferences. I'm talking, I'm talking what he wants from coaching. I'm talking like just he's not changing anything for anyone. That's my impression. Now, but I've seen many a player over the years. I mean, I think back to Kevin Love, and like K-Love was the most gregarious, outgoing, approachable, like star player in his first few years in Minnesota. Happy to be there. Everything was great. And then it all turned. Now, part of that was contract. I think what we've learned from Love over the years is that the mental health issues, maybe some of that comes in. But certainly we have seen many players when they graduate from good player and really good player to elite to great player, it can cloud their mind. It can change their approach. And so it's possible. I can't rule it out, but there's just something that is about Ant that's just like, man, this is who I am. And if you don't like me, shove it up your ass and I'm just going to keep doing me. I don't know. What do you think about that? Like,
yeah, no, I guess what I asked that to be, it's only going to become more valuable that he remains that way, because now, like, he's just going to be one of the most famous Americans in the country, like that's just the reality of the situation. So if you are Rob Dillingham, if you are Terrence Shannon Jr. coming in and you're seeing Anthony Edwards after he's gotten like famous with a capital F, still getting cussed out by Finch, like, yeah, Rob, when Finch cusses you out, 15 minutes later about not playing defense, it's gonna be pretty hard for you to talk back there, or whoever. And kind of to your point with K-Love, I didn't cover the team back then, but the star players I know on the Timberwolves that I've covered have not always had that same mold.
Yeah.
And so I think it is just like almost like a blissfully naive thing that Ant has of like, actually like anything you say can't hurt me because I don't get like embarrassed or something like that. That's the sense I get with it. He doesn't get embarrassed.
Right.
So he's just like, okay, like I think also Ant is like acutely aware that he does not know.
He knows what he doesn't know. Yeah, he knows what he doesn't know. Yeah.
He knows that like C. Hines knows a hell of a lot more than him about basketball. Yes. Which is, I say like Ant has very high EQ. Like he's very good at like picking up on things like, so I think Ant has put together some point in his career that actually, this is going to help me out. I just hope he stays that way. It's always, just from a covering him standpoint or whatever. I remember reading Boomtown, like that book on Kevin Durant, which is, he was like Ant there, man. And Kevin Durant is not like Ant anymore.
He's not like that anymore. And you see that, like, it's funny, like you see KD with him at the Olympics or even in the first round of the playoffs. You see him like look at Ant with sort of a wistfulness. Like, I used to be that way. Man, that was fun. And look where I am. Now, I think like what will be interesting.
That's why you can't go anywhere, Ant. Look what happened to KD.
Yeah. But like, at least with Ant, if he's had success now doing it this way. Like K-Love never had success doing it that way. Cat didn't have success early on. Like so many Wolves, like pseudo stars or stars came through. Ricky, all of them, Jimmy, Jimmy, they lost or they were just okay. And there was some sort of ceiling, and whether that was frustration that changed things or whatever, like at least Ant has now seen a real progression of success,
right?
Both individually and with the team, to say, if I keep doing it this way, it's going to work. And I think that might translate to at least a little more patience with it. That's always what you hear about Duncan and Pop. Like it was always, hey, like we are so successful, and Pop would keep saying to him, it's because you allow me to coach you. And so if Finch keeps driving that into Ant of, because you allow me to do this, you're going to see all your teammates fall in line and we're going to have a chance to win more. I think he will process that and say, yeah, this is working. So let's just keep carrying that forward.
No, that's the point, John, is that like Ant has had success.
Yes.
Like that there has success has come along with it, which is, for me, the biggest thing I missed in the whole Gobert trade, right? The value of, incubating Ant's growth within a successful
setting a floor
environment. That turned out to be a real thing. And this is just, we could list 15 different elements of that. But the coaching one is true. And I think, like this team has a culture. This team has a culture right now. And people think that's goofy or whatever. I'm just telling you, man, if you were in there, like John and I were on the teams that did not have a culture, it's stark, dude. Like it's stark, and like winning doesn't happen. Like it's like, or like winning is so much harder when you can just tell that like a group of guys are moving in different directions. It's cool. It's cool to see it transcend to the summer league team. But that's a culture.
Yep. For sure. We'll take one more quick break here, and then we'll hit a few quick ones out the door. But first of all, we are brought to you again. We're in the Aquarius Home Services studios.
The temps may be rising, but that means it's a summer meltdown of savings. Scott for Aquarius Home Services. Stay cool and comfy with up to $3,000 off a new cooling and heating system. Plus, enjoy a free whole home air purification system with qualifying purchase. A new worry-free AC starts with a free in-home consultation during the Aquarius Meltdown of Savings sale going on now through July. Scheduled today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
You've heard Steve Terry on this network. You've seen him at our live shows. Great guy, does it. And, he does a great job with TSR Injury Law. They've helped so many people. They've won money through their efforts for so many people. If you were ever injured, simply call 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. They will take care of you, or they will point you in the right direction. They will not charge you unless they win your case, and they win a lot of cases. Now they're hanging out with Naz Reid. That's how cool they are. A great company, TSR Injury Law, 612-TSR-TIME.
All right, Dane, a couple quick hits to close here. And we're here with Dane Moore, the world famous Dane Moore NBA pod. And Terrence Shannon, just like I from my perception, for a 27th overall pick, it's harder to make a better first impression. Just in terms of someone who you at least think has a chance to be a rotation player, physical, older. I can see things. I can see a pathway forward for him to be the 9th, the 10th guy and come in and be an asset to this team from what I've seen in Las Vegas. What'd you think about it?
Yeah, I actually think it. So we're recording this the day of the fourth game. So the last game in my mind is the third game of Summer League, which Shannon did not pop in, which I actually thought was instructive because that first game, he looks like the best player in Summer League, right? But a ton of it was like the Wolves were generating a lot of steals. They're getting out in transition. There was a pace to that entire first game that Shannon got, again, fast break dunks or like against swing, shifted defense, attack, the force. He's getting and ones. He looked like a stud. The third game, I think, was interesting because the Sixers like played zone and it was just like really slowed down and he really didn't get involved like much at all in the game. And I think that if you put those two together, it's a good like representation of what he probably is right now for this team. Like he's not a guy that's going to self-start himself, right? It isn't the quote unquote bucket getter that we were talking about with like Rob Dillingham or, that Conley and Finch talked about of like, we need that guy who can break the paint and all this and that. I don't think he's that. I think he's this like weapon that helps you get out in transition a little bit more. If you forget about him and it's a shifted defense or he's got a little guy and he's going to blow by and be able to go through you. But there was like that minute, right? Where we're watching the first game and we're like, I don't know, man, this dude going to like,
is he going
to be the sixth man? Yeah, right. Like, is this one injury away for the start?
Yeah.
No, it's
look out, Jaden.
Yeah, right. Like I think like, but that's okay. I say that to mean like, okay, now I actually have a good vision of it. It's not, there's some limitations to what he's going to give you. And within those limitations, you kind of like find your role and you grow out of that role. And we know that type of role exists, right? If he's cool with chilling in the corner and actually will take open catch and shoot threes or attack the basket when the opportunity presents itself, that's going to work.
Yeah.
Like that's going to work. The question is, can he like rewire his brain from number 1 option guy to number 5 option guy? Cause that's what he'll be, or 4 or 5 when he's ever on the floor there. Skill set, like what he can and can't do, I think fits that. And it makes sense to be part of the like replacing Kyle Anderson calculation, to me. I still would have him 10th. Like if we're going through, sure, the whole rotation there, but yeah, what a win to come out of somebody and be like, this guy might be a rotation dude. Like that in and of itself is big.
Yeah. It's clear that Finch always says it. I'm going to give guys left and right bumpers and let them operate in between. And they will have clearly defined bumpers for him. And the role that it seems to be illustrated for him right now is get out there and break stuff in transition. Like just, play fast when those opportunities present themselves, attack the rim with reckless abandon and just make stuff happen that way. And then, yes, be patient offensively the other way. And then, I do think the size can play defensively. Like it seems like that physicality, he wants to play rugged. If he comes in and he fouls a bunch, that's okay. He's not going to be playing, he's not going to be playing 25 minutes. So I think that there is going to be a clearly defined role. So far, what he is saying, and again, kind of getting to the overall theme of this podcast of this is a successful team that he's joining. He is coming to a team with Ant, with Cat, with Rudy, with Conley, with real established pecking order. So I don't think there's going to be room for someone to, there are plenty of teams that you and I have covered where the 27th pick could come in and be like, man, I'm better than most of these guys. I'm going for it, and that's clearly not the case. He has said as much. He understands that. We'll see how that translates on the court. But
seems genuine to me, but for whatever that's worth,
agree.
Like
totally agree.
I think he does. And that is part of being the good team. Like a lot of these guys in college, they're not watching like League Pass on a March Wednesday, but they are watching the playoffs. So they know that the Timberwolves went to the Western Conference Finals. I don't think Rob or TJ are coming into this at the beginning being like, I have something that's owed to me.
Correct.
Right. Rob probably has a little bit of an expectation that he's going to play. But Shannon's got to know that, anything that he gets is going to kind of be earned because you are on the Minnesota Timberwolves. I just think there is like a space to be earned there, right? Particularly if Ingles is now 37. I mean, I actually, like that signing. I just like being like, here's a guy who can just put in the corner. He's going to shoot it. But like, if there's not enough there, if Rob does have some struggles at the beginning, they're just trying to find a more reliable piece off the bench. I could see Shannon getting up the pecking order a little bit more as maybe like kind of like Shake Milton-ish last season at the beginning. But yeah, I just I'm not a big like draft guy or watching college basketball guy, but watching him in person this handful of times, seeing him in person, like let's not call him 6'6". Like I've seen on the broadcast, they're calling him 6'6". Dude, 6'6" without shoes on. Yeah. So that's what we talk about is 6'8" guys in the NBA. I'm just saying
he's big. He's legit.
We stood
big.
next to him. He's way fucking taller than me, man. Like he's a big dude.
Taller than me too, which is hard to do. So,
yeah, you and Rob are a little bit closer. But right. No, I'm excited about him.
Yeah. Lastly, I know he's still young, but am I wrong for hoping to see a little bit more from Minot than we've seen? Like year 3 of this, like he's put in a lot of work, I know, but I guess usually the third-year players.
That's my thing with him. Like, what is the shape? What do you want it to be? I can't figure that out. He's bigger too. He's gotten taller.
Yeah.
He's gotten thicker. But
I think with a year 3 player, you want to see something more, right? Of like, okay, this guy is a legit NBA player that does not belong on this floor, or at least is a standout among the players on the floor. And I don't know that I saw enough of that to say that, oh yeah, he's ready to help take over some of the Kyle Anderson minutes in some way, shape, or form. I haven't felt that way yet.
I haven't either. And I think he's like ready for it. Like he wants it.
He wants it. Absolutely.
Like this is my third year. The chaos of Josh Minot's game at the first summer league is what made him so attractive as this. Whoa, what did he get in the second round? The chaos is making me like unattracted to the prospect now, because at this point in your third summer league, I would like to be like, hey, I can picture you in a 9th man role. Like even Jalen Clark, who we haven't talked about yet. Like if Jalen Clark got out there, I know what he would do.
Yes.
He would like guard and he would go stand in the corner.
Josh
and like, yes, exactly. Right. Yeah. And it's just with Minot, I don't know what that like one thing is. And that's where it always starts for me of like a player who's outside of a rotation of like, what can you give me first? And then we can build off of that. Like, I feel like Minot should be awesome at the rim defensively. Yeah. It's inconsistent there because he comes in like swinging both arms going for it. I do think the jump shot's gotten better. I was just like watching him just shoot like pregame for a while, and it's a little bit less chaos to it, but I wouldn't feel confident about him coming into an NBA game or even these summer league games being like, oh yeah, that's knockdown. Like it's not. So he's still 21, but it's which is 3 years younger than Derek Shannon Jr., but there's just the contract's kind of running out, and I don't know if that opportunity is going to come.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe it'll click on in training camp, but yeah, we'll have to see about that. But well, Dane, appreciate you taking a little time. I hope you get a little time to rest now and recharge and get away for a little bit and relax. But
so how long do you like after you get LASIK? Are you
They say for a day. They say for a day, like you got to come home and keep your eyes closed for like 3 to 4 hours. So I'm sure my kids are going to love that. I'm sure the wife will love that. But
well, you timed it out right. August is the right time to. So
I'm going to shut down. But then apparently by the next day you're good to go, and we'll see. I'll be seeing a whole new world, man. So thanks to the Aquarius Home Services Studios. Thanks to True Vision Institute. SGLambchops.com, TSR Time, and Princeton's Liquors. And thanks to our producer, Davide Rosso. This has been the John Krasinski Show. And one more thank you to Dane Moore for joining us. And we will talk to you next week.